It starts in the pre-dawn silence of an American worksite. A pickup idles in the half-light, its engine thumping with that unmistakable slow iron heartbeat. Not a roar, not a scream, just a steady, confident rhythm. You've heard it before. Maybe you grew up with it. Maybe it hauled your family's world behind it. That sound is the Ford 300 straight six, an engine that quietly, stubbornly, relentlessly outworked every American V8 ever built. Most people have no idea why. Most people don't know the truth behind its impossible reliability. But by the time you're done with this story, you'll understand why the 300 didn't just earn loyalty. It earned legend. And the legend starts in a place almost nobody talks about. Back in 1965, when the muscle car era was exploding, Ford was busy unveiling big block monsters like the 427, 428, and the 429. Engines built for bragging rights, drag strips, and magazine covers. But deep inside Ford's truck division, engineers had a very different goal. They weren't trying to break speed records. They were trying to build something that could pull a loaded grain truck out of mud at 3 a.m. in February and do it again the next morning and the next for decades. So they designed an engine around one idea: it can't quit. That idea created one of the most overbuilt, over-engineered, indestructible pieces of machinery America has ever made. And it started with a simple formula: long stroke, huge torque, low stress. The Ford 300 came with a 4-inch bore and a massive 3.9 8-inch stroke. Nearly square, but working in favor of torque-real, usable, off-idle twist. Displacement? A humble 300 cubic inches. Compression ratio? About 8:1 in early years, perfect for lousy fuel, hard work, and constant abuse. Horsepower? Only about 170 in its earliest trim. But torque? A brutal 283 lb-ft, delivered at barely 1,600 revolution per minute. That meant the 300 pulled hard before most engines even woke up. But torque is torque, you might say. And here's where the story gets crazy. Because the 300 didn't just make torque, it survived torque. And survival, not power, was the real engineering challenge. Inside the engine, Ford made decisions that seem almost ridiculous today. The crankshaft wasn't just forged, it was a 7-main bearing forged crank. 7. That's the kind of bottom-end stability you expect in a diesel. The block walls were so thick that machine shops still joke about boring them out all day long without hitting water. The connecting rods were burly I-beams that looked like something designed for industrial equipment. Mechanics used to say, "You'll break the truck before you break the engine," and it wasn't a joke. But what makes this story fascinating isn't just the engineering. It's what happened when real people started using it in the real world. Farmers put them in grain haulers that ran 15 hours a day. Utility companies kept them idling on job sites for entire shifts. Ford sold industrial versions that powered generators, pumps, and forklifts. And if you ask the mechanics who lived through that era, they'll all tell you the same thing. The 300 ran hot, cold, uphill, overloaded, neglected, and mistreated. And it just kept going. But there was a problem. This thing was almost too good. In the late 60s, Ford tried getting rid of the old overhead valve 6 to push customers toward V8s. More profit, more excitement, more marketing appeal. But the truck guys fought back. They needed torque. They needed reliability. They needed engines that didn't care how many hours they idled or how much weight you threw at them. So the 300 stayed, and that's when it really started to prove itself. By the early 70s, emissions laws were hitting hard. High-compression V8s were choking, wheezing, and dropping power fast. But the 300, with simple carburation, tough internals, and a low-stress design, it adapted easily. Even with smog gear, it kept producing usable torque right where truck drivers needed it. Most people don't realize this, but the 300 straight 6 actually outpulled many of Ford's own small block V8s in real-world work, and then the racing world found it. In the late 1970s, a handful of circle track racers discovered something shocking. With the right cam and carb, this humble truck engine could scream. They bored it 0.040 over, bumped compression to 10.5.1, bolted on Clifford intakes, Holley 4 barrels, and long tube headers. Suddenly, this tractor engine was spinning past 6,000 revolutions per minute and making 350 horsepower. Track owners started banning the 300. Yes, banning it. Why? Because it kept winning. Too much torque, too much durability, too much advantage over the V8 guys. One racer said the crank looked brand new after a whole season. Meanwhile, the Chevy guys were swapping bottom ends every few weeks. And that's when engine builders realized something. Ford hadn't built an engine. They'd built a platform, a foundation, a block of iron that could be anything diesel-like torque monster, racetrack bully, or rock-crawling legend. But here's the twist most people don't know. The 300 didn't just outperform V8s in reliability. In certain applications, it outright embarrassed them. Utility companies documented 300-powered trucks lasting over 300,000 miles with almost no major repairs. Meanwhile, small block V8s from the same era often needed rebuilding by 120,000. In industrial applications, the 300 had an even more shocking reputation. Some ran 10,000 hours straight between major overhauls. That's the equivalent of driving 600,000 miles in a pickup. Think about that. A little six-cylinder, outlasting American V8s 3-1. But the real legend grew in the 1980s. Fuel injection arrived, multi-port EFI came in 1987, and the 300 straight six transformed again. Power jumped to around 150 horsepowers, torque climbed to 265, lb-ft, and drivability skyrocketed. Cold starts? Instant. Fuel economy? Better than many V8s reliability? Somehow, even stronger. One Ford engineer joked, "We thought EFI would expose weak spots. Instead, we found out it didn't have any." The 300 was now so efficient, so durable, and so dependable that entire industries standardized their fleets around it. Power companies, rail yards, oil fields, farms, construction outfits. If a company needed engines that absolutely could not fail, they chose the 300. So how do you beat a legend on its own turf? Ford never quite figured that out. By the early 90s, the world was changing, CAFE standards were tightening, aerodynamics mattered, weight mattered, fuel efficiency mattered more than brute force. The 300, with its cast iron block and iron head, was a tank. Strong, but heavy. Old school. A throwback to a time when engines outlived the trucks around them. In 1996, after 31 straight years, Ford ended production of the 300. No engine since has had a run like that. The tooling was shut down. The blocks stopped pouring. An era ended not because the engine failed, but because it refused to. Ironically, the modular V8s that replaced it struggled with early issues timing chains, spark plug threads, oil leaks. Great engines eventually, but nowhere near the out-of-the-box indestructibility of the 300. And that's why the legend only grew stronger. Today, 300 straight six engines are everywhere. In junkyards, in barns, on ranches, in old F-Series trucks that somehow still start after sitting 10 years in a field. Enthusiasts rebuild them into off-road crawlers, making 400 lb-ft of torque at barely above idle. Racers still tune them for ridiculous horsepower numbers. And restorers keep them alive because no engine screams American work ethic like a Ford straight six. So why did the Ford 300 outwork every American V8 in history? It wasn't just the specs, though the specs matter. It wasn't just the design, though the design was brilliant. It wasn't even the torque, though that helped. It was the philosophy. Build it simple, build it strong, build it to last longer than the stories people tell about it. That's why a 300 straight six could run with no oil for 20 miles. That's why farmers trusted it more than any V8. That's why racing leagues banned it. And that's why, 60 years after it first appeared, it's still turning wrenches, turning heads, and turning work into legend. Because while V8s got the glory, the Ford 300 did the work. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments what engine you want next. The forgotten beasts, the misunderstood legends, or the ones that changed American automotive history forever. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive.